All right, we're previewing the Oregon Ducks, Dalton, one of the 4 new teams entering the Big Ten, and they are by far the best one entering the Big Ten right now. We consider them to be one of the 3 best teams in college football. Had a great year last year, going 12-2, winning the Fiesta Bowl. They really have been improving every year. They went 10-3 in Dan Lanning's first season as head coach, and then, like I said, 12-2 this upcoming year. And like I said, they have a shot at winning it all this upcoming season as well, Don, because they are really, really good. They brought back so many great players, even though they lost some players as well. But really, man, they killed the transfer portal and are really loaded on offense and defense.
Yeah, I agree, and I'll tell you, there's nobody happier than Dan Lanning, that the fact that Michael Penix Jr. is in the NFL, right? Because that really was the only thing standing in their way between them and a trophy last year, right? But no, offensively, I mean, Oregon's always loaded, but that's just going to continue this year, man. I think probably the single most impactful transfer of anybody in the portal window was getting Dillon Gabriel to replace Bo Nix. Like, we can talk about his NFL prospects and everything later, but as a college quarterback, he's just been money for 5+ years, right? Then you're talking about Jordan James at running back replacing Bucky Irving. Is a really good player, arguably the best receiver duo in the country, and Tez Johnson and Evan Stewart, who came in from Texas A&M. Really underrated tight end duo and Terrence Ferguson and Patrick Herbert, and then a tackle duo who both guys could get picked very high in the NFL, Johnny Cornelius and Josh Connerly. Like, they have just got everything you want in an offense. They really do. You're building the college offense, you want to put up 45 points a week. Dillon Gabriel at the head of it and all these talented players around him, they're going to put up points. Even with the move to the Big Ten, they're going to put up points on everybody.
I agree, man. I think this is the best offense that we have in college football right now. I mean, the best receiving core in the country, second best quarterback in the country, top 5 offensive line, top 10 running back unit, and a really good play caller in Will Stein on offense too. So they're going to light up the scoreboard, that's for sure, even though they're going to a more difficult defensive conference in the Big Ten. The biggest weakness of this team, now they are really good defensively as well. The one area that they aren't great at, I would say right now, is the pass rush. They have a massive defensive line. All 4 of their projected starters on the defensive line, whether it be edge defender or D tackle, weigh at least 270 pounds. So they're all huge players. So that helps them out in run defense, but doesn't really help them out in the pass rush too much, and they're not really as twitched up as you would want them to be. Of those 4 players, 3 of them had a pass rushing grade below a 65 last year. So they made some nice additions along the defensive line, but all of them, I would say, in the transfer portal, but I would say all those guys are more like really good run defenders rather than impactful pass rushers. So I like the defense overall. They have a really good secondary. I like their linebackers, and I like the D-line in terms of run defense, but I think the pass rush is one area where I think it could be their one weakness, I would say, on this roster next year.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, if they're going to have any weakness, it's going to be on their defense. And you lost Brendan Dorless last year, who was probably your best pass rusher. And, they have to figure out, to me, this is a team that has to figure out enough defense, right? Like, being the offense you have, you're not going to have the best defense in the country. But, tilting it back towards that offense, if they're going to put up 45 a game and not have to play a whole lot of defense, you got the right guy running the show in Dillon Gabriel, right? And I think – watching Gabriel, we can debate all the merits next year because he's 5'11", he's right around 290, 200 pounds. We'll debate all the NFL draft stuff later with his frame. In college, this has been one of the best quarterbacks of the past half decade, right? Spectacular work at UCF, terrific work at Oklahoma. Just brings everything to the table, and his game is so balanced. Clean pocket, pressure, blitz. Now he's going from one heavy play action system in Oklahoma to another that he's going to be really comfortable with. Like, it's not only the talent with Gabriel in Oregon, it's the fit, man. Like, you could not find a better guy to replace Bo Nix in this offense than Dillon Gabriel. And I think, funny enough, he's one of just 2 guys last year who had a top 10 passing grade in a clean pocket and under pressure. And the other one was Bo Nix, who he's replacing. So it's really, I think he could be very, very similar. He doesn't turn the ball over a whole lot. He throws the ball well down the field, especially down the middle to the post. He works the play action. He knows the RPOs inside and out. There's really nothing in this offense that Gabriel shouldn't be able to do. There's not a ton of flaws to his game. Again, the flaws are going to be the measurables in the draft stuff that we get come the spring. As far as the college game goes, he's going to be in the Heisman Trophy race. This is just what we're going to get with this offense and this system and this player. I'd be shocked if he wasn't in the top 5, at least, of the Heisman race.
Dalton, I think I'm going to spoil it right now. I believe I'm going to be picking him to win the Heisman Trophy next year. I think he's going to put up huge numbers in that offense. And I think you mentioned the scheme fit, man. I think it's perfect for him. I think it's exactly what they want. They had Bo Nix do. That's exactly the type of quarterback that Dillon Gabriel is as well. Just kind of the efficient assassin, right? The not really a game manager, like because he's making big plays, but I think that's kind of the role you're gonna have. Like it's the point guard, right? The point guard of your offense, who's not gonna go outside the scheme too much. And I think that's just exactly what he could do at a high level. And one of the guys he's gonna be targeting, and you mentioned that best receiver duo in the country. The big reason for that is Tez Johnson, who's coming back for another year at Oregon, transferred to there from Troy. Really cool story about Tez Johnson. So he actually grew up in a rough area. And he, was getting into some trouble as a kid. The Nix family, Bo Nix's family, actually took him in as a kid and kind of adopted him a little bit. And they went to high school together, played high school football together. Tez's dream, Bo said to me, was actually always to play Oregon. He actually had an Oregon sweatshirt that I believe his dad got him that he wore all the time, right? And he actually, funny enough, he couldn't go. So Bo Nix's first game was against Oregon in his college career when he was at Auburn. Tez was not allowed to go because Tez refused to take off that Oregon sweatshirt. They're like, dude, if you're going to be rooting on your brother, you can't be rooting for the opposite team. So he didn't go to that game, but he always dreamt of going to Oregon, wasn't big enough, wasn't recruited well enough. He went to Troy. Bo Nix, by miracle, Bo Nix transfers over to Oregon and is like, hey, not only is this my adopted brother, and I want him here because of that, he's also a damn good player. So Oregon watches his tape at Troy, and they offer him coming out of Troy. And now he gets to play for his dream school, which is such a cool story. And it's not only a cool story, Dalton, he's a freaking superstar, right? He's one of the best receivers that we have in college football. He led the Power 5 last year with 727 yards after the catch and had 278 receiving yards after contact, which were 5th in the Power 5, even though he's not that big of a receiver, right? He's only 160 pounds, but yet he's still a menace after the catch as well. Averaged 3.45 yards per route run, which only trailed the league neighbors among Power 5 receivers last year. Was open on 93% of his targets, which is the 99th percentile of FBS receivers. He gets open at a very elite rate and is unbelievable after the catch as well. Again, he has some drop issues, and he's not the biggest. Like, that's going to be a big thing for his NFL evaluations. He's only 160 pounds. He's a very, very light receiver, but in terms of college receiver, man, I think he's one of the 5 best that we have in college football right now.
Another guy who's a perfect fit in this system, right? I mean, you're just talking about just a guy who gets open. That's what you want. He gets open, he makes plays after the catch. And you look, Oregon's been killing the transfer portal now for a couple of years, right? And they got another superstar on defense now through the portal this year from the rival who beat him twice, Washington. That's Jabbar Muhammad at corner. I mean, I'll tell you what, he might not be our number 1 corner in the country, but he might be my favorite guy to watch. Just really feisty in coverage. Breaks up the ball, just a ball hawk. Like, that's what he is. He fights you in coverage. 19 forced incompletions last year, which led all corners. Not the biggest dude, sometimes not the most physical tackler, but I'll tell you what, he is absolutely a top 10 guy at the position. He's going to be in the running for a first-round pick next year, and he just plays the game the right way. They got an absolute alpha in their secondary.
Dude, it's funny. There's kind of the same thing with Tez Johnson, man, where it's like these lighter guys that you'd expect to have one play style, but they play so much bigger than what their listed size is, honestly, both those guys. So, huge fan of Tez Johnson, huge fan of Jabbar Muhammad. They're both dogs, man. All right, bottom line time now for Oregon. So many people, Dalton, I feel like, are saying the top 2 teams by a mile are Georgia and Ohio State. Is Oregon deserving of being in that tier with them? Or do you think they're more in the next tier with teams like Ole Miss, Texas, Alabama, teams like that? Do you think that they deserve to be in the top tier with those teams, or where do you put Oregon as of right now?
No, I think they should be, and maybe I'd put them 3rd, but I think they're in that inner circle of teams that can win the title. You look at last year and the work they did outside of the 2 games against Washington, and you go, I think the only other close game they played at all was a game against Texas Tech, which is odd early in the year, but they got it done, right? Outside of playing an absolutely legendary offense with Penix and Odunze and those guys, they were just phenomenal. Like, there's no question they were a top 8 team in the country. You could probably argue that they were the 5th or 6th best team in the country last year, right? And the fact that, then you sit there and you go, well, you lose Bo Nix and Troy Franklin, but, well, you got Dillon Gabriel and Evan Stewart, so I'm pretty sure you'll survive, right? They should be in the inner circle. Like, anybody who picks them to win the national title this year, I'm not really going to bat an eye at it, because it's like, okay, they're clearly one of the best teams in the country. The adjustment will probably be getting into the Big Ten. Look, their hardest games at home against Ohio State, right? Playing maybe a couple of those cold weather games, but at least they don't have to do it at Ohio State, or I don't think they're at Michigan. I could be wrong on that. Check that. But like they have everything, right? You just maybe they need a little more on defense, somebody to break out on the defensive line, but offensively, you're right. I mean, they should expect to have the best offense in the country.
Yeah, they are at Michigan in November, so that could be interesting. Cold weather.
That'll be a fun one, because if we're talking about Michigan being the best D in the country, and who knows, in November in Ann Arbor it could be 20 degrees out there. That might be a new challenge for Dillon Gabriel. You didn't get that out west, playing those Pac-12 teams. So that would be the one question for me. But on paper, they should beat Michigan. Like we know exactly how Oregon's going to score, and they're going to score a lot. We have no idea how Michigan's going to score, right? So you look at them, they should be in that inner circle. They absolutely should, with all of the talent that they have. And just it feels like one of these years they have to get over the hump, right? And like last year, it's just like, man, you just 2 years really, you just can't beat Michael Penix.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nobody happier that he's in the NFL now than Oregon. So with that out of the way, now you have a shot, and you've got a couple of huge games in the Big Ten that you're going to have to win along the way.
Yeah, and Kalen DeBoer also gone too. He's, now at Alabama, he's going to avoid Kalen DeBoer as well, which I'm sure Dan Lanning would appreciate as well. I will say, man, we talk about that best offense in the country, deservingly so, but they still have a really good defense too. Like, I don't think this is like another school that we're going to talk about, like for Michigan, for example, where it's like, okay, the defense is unbelievable, but the offense, that's question marks. Defense is still really good, right? Which is why I think they're in that mix. I agree with you with Georgia and Ohio State, and I'd be surprised if one of those three teams isn't your national champion at the end of the day. Maybe I throw Ole Miss in that mix as well, maybe Texas too, but those are the top three, I think, by pretty clearly. And also, Dan Lanning, head coach, is a defensive guru, right? He's a Kirby Smart disciple. So he's a really, really smart defensive coach. So you already have the best offense in the country, and then a really smart defensive head coach with really talented players on defense as well. I think this is the best team in the country after Ohio State and Georgia as of right now. I really do, and I think they are firmly in the national title picture. And I don't know if you saw, Dalton, but Phil Knight is pouring money into that program right now because he is desperate for Oregon to win a national title before he passes away. And I think that the way Dan Lanning is doing it right now, man, I could absolutely see this program winning a national title in the next 5 years or so. The way they're recruiting, the way they're bringing in guys from the transfer portal, and how good of a coach Dan Lanning is as well. Yeah, I can see this being a program that's definitely still rising right now, which is crazy considering they already are an elite program. But that's what we got for our preview of the Oregon Ducks, one of the best teams in college football. Again, we are previewing not only the best teams in college football, every team in the Power Four, from the good ones to the average ones to the not-so-good ones. Every single one of the 70 teams will be getting their own season preview. So make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any one of them.